how to improve the employment of youths in cities in Africa. And clearly this is a huge issue. And my views on this are, I have to say, somewhat pessimistic, because what I think the Centre was looking for is ways in which to draw more young people into what one would call the formal economy. So what one might sometimes call decent jobs, although you can have decent jobs in the informal sector, but I would say jobs that generate incomes that a person can live on, and very importantly, and I feel strongly about this, have some sort of family life. Not just be a single person living in a shared rented room for their whole life, that is all they can aspire to. That's a terrible thing. I think you need to generate some sorts of incomes which are livable for people. And one of the things that, one of the lessons, I think, not particularly just for Africa, but generally for cities, is that it's often thought that the cities of the North, the cities of America, the cities of the United Kingdom and Europe and so on, that generally speaking, most people generate, they have those sorts of lives and they have those sorts of incomes. But in fact, one of the things is that there are literally millions and millions and millions of jobs in those countries that do not generate sufficient incomes. And the gap is made up by the state. There are all sorts of subsidies, very importantly, in things like unemployment benefit and old age pensions and so on, and South Africa has old age pensions. But the key thing is housing subsidies, which are absolutely huge all across America, all across Europe. People don't recognise how big that is. So approximately 50% of several European countries, 50% of the population in the rented sector are having their rents in some way subsidised. People don't realise this. Now this may think, what on earth has this got to do with Africa? But it's the lesson for the livelihoods of urban people. Is one of the things that the Centre for Development and Enterprise was asking is, why is Africa not more urbanised? And I think why in particular is South Africa not more urbanised? And they themselves pose the question, perhaps incomes in cities are insufficient to induce people to come into the city and stay. And I think that's it, because I think incomes are just very, very low. So there is a role, and it's a very difficult issue, and it's going to vary from country to country, but there is a role if you want stable livelihoods and people remaining in towns, engaging with towns. There's a role for the state, particularly in providing subsidies for rental housing, social housing we call it in Europe. That's one lesson, and it's a lesson that, as I say, very many people just don't recognise the extent to which there is support, there has to be support for ordinary working people in full sector decent jobs. And there's a lot of jobs that don't produce good income. So that affects migration patterns.